This is KTN News.
The big news this morning is the move by the government asking mobile telephone service providers to allow it to plant gadgets on all networks in the country that have the ability to listen, read and track down all mobile phone users. The government, through the Communications Authority of Kenya, will start fixing the gadgets on the networks run by Safaricom, Airtel and Telkom Kenya from next week, if all goes well. The Communications Authority has asked operators to allow its agents on their sites to install the links at their data centers or mobile switching rooms. Now, the devices have the capability to gain access to all information transacted on your phone, including the times and the dates of the communication. A very good morning to you and welcome to News Center on this Friday. It is the 17th day of February 2017. We're glad you could join us. My name is Sophia Wanuna. Away from the spy plot by the government, we are also following the meeting between IEBC and the Jubilee Secretariat. Amongst issues to be discussed will be the IEBC involvement in the Jubilee Party nominations and a memorandum on issues Jubilee want to be addressed. We're also following the doctors' strike now on its 75th day. Union officials were released on Wednesday following consent in court that also tasked the LSK and the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights to mediate the talks. So how soon will they start? We'll be giving you an update on that as well. And this morning, we, as I mentioned, are looking at those stories and we'll be having discussions on the same right here in studio. So that big news, as I mentioned there this morning, is that move by the government to asking mobile phone telephone services providers to allow it to plant gadgets to all networks in the country that have the ability to listen, read and track down all mobile phone users. Our tweetable question this morning is drawn from that story, and we are asking you, as you'll see it shortly on your screens, do you support the move by the government to monitor all mobile phone transactions? All mobile phone transactions, this includes calls, text messages, if it's money transactions, including time and place, of course, and how long is what the breakdown, according to stakeholders, on what this would mean is. Of course, the CA has a different view of what these gadgets that are called the device management system, if you like, or black box, as some have called them. So do you support that move? You can get in touch with us at Sophia Wanuna or at KTN News. We'd love to hear from you. But away from the spy plot by the government, we're also following the meeting between IEBC and the Jubilee Secretariat. Amongst issues to be discussed will be the IEBC involvement in the Jubilee Party nominations and a memorandum on issues Jubilee wish to be addressed. And joining me in studio to talk more about this is Professor Maurice Amutabi and Martin Ndati. They are both political analysts. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us in studio. So let's talk about, begin with the extension of the registration by voters. Of course, we'll talk about this meeting in a short while. Our Patrick Amima will be giving us more details on the same. But there was that ruling up to the 19th of February now. What do you make of it, Martin?
I think the courts are enforcing the law the way it's supposed to be, because the Constitution says that you close the registration 60 days to the elections. So the IEBC had issued an administrative edict that they will do the mass voter registration. But you know, in law there is no mass voter registration. So Okiya Mtata goes to court and insists that that edict is illegal. Of course, it's going to put the preparation process in disarray, because IEBC has very strict timelines, and we are already running behind schedule. You see, like the integrated electronic voting system is supposed to have been acquired 60 days, to have been acquired 6 months to the elections. We are already under 6 months to the elections. We have not even started the procurement process. So once they start the process of acquiring that system, it might take another 3-4 months. And those who lose out might go to to the appeals board, which will take another 2 months. Then if they lose, they go to court. So you can see we are in a very awkward position, because we brought in a constitution which we believe is progressive. But there are also too many rights. And in the process of trying to enforce some of those rights, we are also creating a problem. Yeah. Because the people have the rights, and Okia and the rest of the Kenyans have every right of going to court to enforce the requirements as per the law. But at the same time, the IEBC must also be able to make certain decisions for us to have a free, fair, and credible election. Yeah. So there is a catch-22 here.
Mutabi, what do you make of this? Because there are those who opine that at the end of the day, even if we had 3 days of voter registration, right, there is this human tendency, or whether it's what some describe as Kenya's peculiar habits, yeah, to show up on the last day.
Correct.
So that you'll have an extension, then another extension, but the queues are only long on the last day. Yeah. You have 30 days, but everybody will keep pushing it. So does it really help to extend?
Right. I think, like Martin has said, and I want to point out that in the previous elections, registration needs to take place to allow as many people to participate in the election as possible. We hear there are so many ID cards still being held in Huduma centers and other places. Those cards, ID cards, need to be given out to the Kenyans for them to register. And I think if you look at the constitutional requirement, is that IBC should never close these registers for registration. Registration should be a continuous, ongoing process.
But isn't it already continuous at the constituency level?
Yes, it should. Yeah. It should. But the problem is that the offices are so much dispersed and apart from each other that is doesn't reach the very mananchi. What should have had happening is that they can go to universities, to schools, to marketplaces, and so on, than just being confined to a polling station, for example, or a registration center. But I think the challenge that we are realizing, and what your question addresses, Sophia, is that we begin to see a situation where Kenyans like to operate on the last day. They have all 3 months register, or a month register, or 2 weeks, but on the last day they show up. It's a uniquely Kenyan behavior, and which I think if you are a good planner, you should factor that in. And Kenyans are expecting an extension. The MPs, everybody was asking for extension. So if you give them just ideally 2, 3, 4 more days after the deadline, then many will have registered. But the idea of being so rigid, saying that we'll never extend, this is the deadline, you register at that time or not, will not extend. Yeah. And understanding Kenyan dynamics, when you plan, you also plan to your constituents, you plan to environment. Kenyans like to do anything, use a last minute. There's a rush, last minute rush. Okay. So you plan for that. And then the issue of IBC not being prepared for an election because they have not procured machines is illogical. Every election monitoring body, every election conducting body, every commission that I know across the world usually has plan A, B, and C. It's only in Kenya where IBC has just plan A, that let's procure machines and so on. I saw the case of India, where they even talked about borrowing BVR kits from Canada.
Okay.
You should even IBC having preparations for that, so that in case procurement fails, you have a plan B to borrow from South Africa, to borrow from India, bring them massively in a cargo plane and conduct elections. So the issue of procurement issues delaying them is not an issue at all.
So let's listen to the Devolution Cabinet Secretary, that is Mwangi Kiunjuri, and what he had to say in as far as some of what we're witnessing in us with election preparedness.
Constitutional crisis, whereby it will be very difficult for us to hold elections come August. The only way they can win that is through the courts that will rule in their favor. Are Kenyans questioning themselves what will happen now that the courts have ordered that you have a new tender be floated for the printing of ballots, isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah. They have said that you repeat the tender again. Which guarantee do we have that the same opposition will not go to court again after you award the tender, and again they will nullify the tender once again?
That some of these extensions and litigation moving to court and the rulings have an impact, and a serious one at that, even at the election date.
Yeah, they are going to pose very serious challenges. But like now, in terms of printing the ballots, if the IEBC realizes there is a problem, they can go to the Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs and seek a waiver You know, the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee is the one which handles issues of IBC. So what Justice Odunga ruled, and it is legal, was that it was wrong for commissioners who had basically resigned to participate in the award of the tender. And you know, once it was agreed by the parties in parliament that the commissioners are supposed to exit, they were not supposed to make serious decisions in the commission. So it was wrong for them to sit and award that tender. And that's what the court ruled, you know. So whatever decisions they made, and you know, it is even going to affect the by-elections. You remember the Nyacheke, the one in Turkana, Lord Call, and these other places. Somebody can very easily go to court and seek that those elections should be nullified. Because they didn't have, legally they didn't have those powers, because they were still sitting in the commission on an interim basis, waiting for the new commissioners to come in, then they exit. But they didn't have the legal mandate to because they had basically resigned and handed in their resignation letters to the president. So those timelines are going to pose a challenge. And the current commissioners need to be very creative with the CEO, so that where they realize they are having a challenge, they need to engage the political parties and the main players who are Jubilee and NASA, so that they are part of the process. Then they go and sit with the relevant committees of parliament to be able to come up with solutions to some of those problems. Because, like Professor has said, you see, like the issue of the integrated electronic voting system, they don't need to buy the equipment, because if you are going to buy it, it's going to take a very long time. So why don't you lease? Because Ghana had elections the other day, Nigeria had elections the other day, Rwanda has those machines, India has. So instead of us going through a long, rigorous process, which is expensive and which is going to cause us bottlenecks, you seek a waiver from the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee and you lease the equipment. So after the elections, you send back the equipment.
You can send them back. All right, and we'll continue with this conversation. I want us to bring in the aspect as well of the political parties and their preparedness ahead of the elections, because today Jubilee is set to meet the chairperson, IEBC, that's Wafula Chebukati. He will lead his commission in meeting members of the Jubilee Secretariat. Our Patrick Amimo is following that story for us. Of course, among the issues that they'll be discussing will be the involvement of the IEBC on party primaries for Jubilee and a memorandum on issues Jubilee would want addressed. Now, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to finance the nomination of its candidates is what Jubilee had sought. According to the Election Amendment Act 2016, IEBC can be requested by a party to conduct and supervise its nominations for presidential, parliamentary or county elections. Patrick Amimo now joins us to tell us what else to expect. Patrick, it's good to see you. We have heard from IEBC rather in the past that they are quite stretched as far as election preparedness is concerned. So are we seeing this meeting being successful in as far as Jubilee's request for IEBC to conduct the nominations is concerned?
Thank you, Sophia. Indeed, this particular meeting is they're already having a closed-door meeting. That's the IBC commissioners with some leaders from Jubilee at their headquarters in Pangani, Nairobi, and some of these part of the outreach program that IBC has engaged itself in. We saw last week they were at State House, met the President Uhuru Kenyatta, who assured them that the government will fully fund IBC activities in the run-up to the August polls. We also saw last week the IBC commissioners met the NASA leadership at their head office and discussed a range of issues that the opposition was concerned about with regard to the voter register, the double registration of voters, and other worries that the opposition had over this process to ensure that there is a level playing field ahead of the August polls. So it is an outreach program. IBC is going out to meet all stakeholders in this particular party, in this particular election. And as of now, they are having a closed-door meeting. But of interest probably with regard to Jubilee is that the party had promised its aspirants, those persons willing to participate on a Jubilee ticket, that IEBC will conduct their party primaries. And IEBC has given a timeline that party primaries will be conducted in April 13th to 26th of this year. So the parties are required to ensure that their primaries are in place. But IEBC, given that there are challenges, right now it's constrained. We see it's battling court cases with regard to the procurement of voter registration materials, ballot papers, auditing of the voter register, at the same time also maybe conducting party primaries. It will be maybe a challenge for the Commission to have it conduct party primaries, and we know how politically charged these particular party elections can be, given that Jubilee is one of those major parties that everybody wants to have a cake, and because they know that if they are in those areas perceived to be Jubilee strongholds, then once you get that party ticket, you are assured of getting that position, whether it's at the county assembly level, or at Parliament, or at either the county level or at Parliament. So it is something. It's a high stake. It will be high stake party primaries, and IBC maybe could not be. Probably they are weighing the option whether they should get involved in party primaries, given that maybe at times also party dispute resolutions might take long, and if IBC is embroiled in this particular issue, then it might divert their attention in preparing for the major battle. Maybe as the famous Professor Pierre Lumumba would say, it will be akin to introducing a squirrel. When people are following an antelope, and to introduce a squirrel on their path, then they lose sight. So it's something that IBC has to work very, very keenly on this particular path, whether it should involve itself in party primaries or focus on the August 8th polls, which is a national issue that everybody is looking on, and the entire globe. Sophia?
All right, Patrick, thank you for that. We look forward to hearing from you. That is, if the officials will be addressing the media after this meeting. Patrick Amimo live for us from the